So today is the third day of teaching in the morning, the last day of the teachings. Today, in the morning, we would like to do the Bodhisattva vow of aspiration. In the afternoon, we do the Bodhisattva vow of action bodhisattvas. So according to the Lojong, with 8 words of Geshe Langre Thangpa, according to that. Generally speaking, people who are in desperate or in bad situation, very disparate, very poor, have no protection, all these beings, special compassion has to be generated, especially those people who are generally negative, very difficult to transform, very wrathful, very kind of negative, difficult to transform, and have done lots of negative activities, who would bring on themselves lots of suffering in this life and in other lifetimes. Somebody who are kind of certain to suffer. So to this, so we have to treat them as if like we got a very great treasure. So we have to see them as a great treasure and have special compassion to them. So all of us have enemies, kind of close friends, and in between. So all the beings who are around here has been our enemies, our friends, our in between, and will be, and can be anything. So therefore, if somebody is our enemy now, there's no certainty that they have always been like that or they will always be like that. So the enemy is temporary. So therefore, because we Buddhists believe in birth after birth, so if we believe in that, then it's another matter. But if we do not have that belief, of course there are people who do not have easily, who can easily accept this life after life. And some of the scientists think that there is no life after life. Some say that because we cannot see, therefore we cannot say it's not there. Although we have not done much studies, we have not researched much, but it doesn't, so therefore we don't see. It's not that we haven't found anything so far. That cannot become a scientific kind of a proof that it is not there. So there are scientists who are in doubt. So there is something about the life after, at least that we have something doubtful about. If there is a life after, then if you do not prepare well now, then it's very dangerous. Our body, speech, and mind, all our power, all our essence, if we spend for this life only. We spend all our energies to this life. Uh, and then certainly if a scientist find out that, oh yes, there is a next life, then it might give a big kind of big uh, kind of revolution in the world, and then we might find that uh, it's too late for us. So therefore, we have to think carefully. Uh, it's a danger that this might fall on my head before I could give you the Bodhisattva vows. Shall I make a more? Whether we should remove this or not? Therefore, the the good masters difficult to find. The good teachings of the Dharma very difficult to find. Somebody who is meditating the bodhicitta. So those, if we find people with very kind of difficult persons or bad with people with bad karma, we have to find it very fortunate. Drupal Kunle said that it is more profound to meditate about the sentient beings of the six realms than all the Buddhas. So to meditate on lots of Buddhas with all kind of hands and all kind of heads is kind of strange. So when we, because there are so many comics nowadays, it's a little bit easier to, you know, so, when we talk about 1,000 hands or 1,000 arms and 1,000 eyes, then how can we, how can we find where the arms grow from? So it's kind of difficult to to imagine. So it's not so kind of. It's a little bit strange. So therefore, Drupal Kunle said that it is much more profound to meditate on the suffering of the six realms of the beings than on all the Buddhas, because that is something that we can see, that we can feel, that we can actually experience. So therefore, it's also something that we don't need to meditate. But even if we meditate, then it's something that is really that we can feel, and it kind of moves our heart. Therefore, so please think like that. Generally, we find that somebody who is not so nice kind of personality, who talks a lot, who is kind of very sectarian, so we feel a little bit uneasy. It's kind of uneasy or feel bad to be with them. That's okay, but if somebody who is really practicing bodhicitta uh, finds his negative kind of personality and his negative actions, it's very important to make sure that his negative kind of personality or his habitual tendencies doesn't become yours. But if there is some chance that you can change him or you can help him or her, then it's very important to relate with him, to be close to him, and then so we can kind of we have to think very broadly. So if we do that, then it's not we don't have this problem of relating with a negative friend or getting the negative friend, the company of negative friend. That would not be, because whether we get the negative friend or not is about how much we will be influenced by them. So if we associate with the negative friends, then we kind of get influenced by them in a negative way. Then it's not. But so therefore, it is not a bad thing that if we are strong enough and we have all the positive side and we want to help them, in some refuge instructions, it is said that you should, as a as a part of refuge precept, you said that if you, as a Buddhist, you should not be in company of wrong kind of company, and then they think that if you are Buddhist, you should not have friends of non-Buddhist, or you should not kind of be friends or be married to non-Buddhist. I think that's the wrong way of seeing. That's not understanding the main kind of teachings. For instance, like we have like two things in our mind. One part of our mind says us, you have to do positive things. You have to be. You have to do positive things. You should practice. You should, follow the instructions of the teachings. And another side of our mind says, no, no, you should not. You can do anything. You should enjoy yourself. You should do what what your teacher says. You should not do what your teacher says. So which part of our mind, you have to listen to? You have to decide. You cannot, listen to both of these voices. Either you listen to the good voice or the bad voice. If you feel that something that says that you have to do good things, if you feel that's really the where you have to submit, that is where you kind of trust. Then yes, then you will be able to accomplish or really practice Dharma. But if you just become lazy and you don't uh, sometimes you do some good things, sometimes you do some bad things, then kind of you can't become a really good practitioner. It will become like a mixed. So therefore, your conscience, uh, what so if we listen to this inner voice or negative voice of your negative sides of the voice, then also you are in company of the bad friends also. So therefore, it's not necessary that you have to have an outside friend who is bad also. Uh, in the same way, if we accompany or if we choose a life partner that is from another religion or things like that, it's not necessarily that it's a bad thing. Only thing is that your mind should be clear what you need to do and what you should not do. Although there is even if there is a very little chance uh, to help people, to transform people, that we must hold on, or we must take that opportunity and use it. Some people say that when we meditate on compassion, we feel more suffering, we feel more painful. So therefore, it doesn't make us compassionate, but it becomes us more painful. So therefore, we cannot meditate. We should not meditate. It's very difficult for us to meditate on compassion because it makes us more painful. It doesn't, doesn't give us the courage or the confidence to help others, but it makes us feel painful. Some people say like that. So the compassionate is not somebody that who has hopeless, who has kind of become totally, kind of discouraged. It's not like that. Because of the great compassion, they become fearless. They become courageous. They become. But if you don't understand how to meditate this compassion properly, then you have pain, you have unhappiness. Some people think, I think maybe they are thinking about these difficult things first, not these easy things. Maybe they're thinking about something that is totally beyond your capacity, something like that. Maybe you are thinking about doing something that's totally beyond your capacities. First, we have to think what I can do, what is possible for me to do. So this is very important too. There's a dog. The dog has been hit by the car and it's injured. And there is infected. If you take out the infection, then the the viruses or the small beings die, and if not, then the dog will die. So what should I do? There's a story about the Asanga that he found this dog. Then he wanted to kind of take it out, the worms, with his tongue. But this is difficult to say that, you have to do exactly this way. So we have to see according to the time and according to the situation, and then see what he has to. Every situation is not like that. Every situation is not like that. Some are kind of more easier and more. So we have to kind of act on what is not so difficult, because we are the beginners. So we should really take what is the most important and what is most easy for us to do. Those things we should act on and concentrate. We are not meditating compassion on the suffering. We are meditating on compassion on the people who are suffering. We are not supposed to only think or experience suffering. We are not supposed to suffer. We are not. We know that these people who doesn't want to suffer, who doesn't want to be unhappy, but they are having problems and sufferings. So therefore, we wish them to be free from suffering, so that to free from suffering. For instance, there is a very precious thing is either kind of a fire and is about to be burnt. This precious thing, we know that the fire is burning and fire is hot, and we don't need to think about how hot and how kind of burning is the fire. We don't have to concentrate on the fire. We have to find how to get this precious thing out of the fire, and so that it doesn't get burnt. So our focus is on the precious thing, that it doesn't get burned. There's a story. I don't remember the name. Somebody asked, the Buddha, is there the end to this world or not? Is the world permanent or impermanent? So Buddha didn't answer. Buddha didn't say the world is permanent, or he didn't say is impermanent. He didn't say that there's an end or there's no end. So he just said he wanted to ask him a question back. So if you are a hunter and you go into the forest, if you are not careful, and if there is another hunter and he hits a kind of poisonous arrow on you, and you are hit by a poisonous arrow, and then would you focus on who's kind of hit me, where does this arrow come from, what is this arrow about? Would you go into this kind of detailed information and try to find out, or you want to get out this arrow and you want to be cured from this, you want to get rid of this poison? We don't have time to go into these details. Afterwards, we can do that after we are saved our life. So in the same way, all the sufferings are suffering from all sorts of sufferings and pain and problems. So we should not. We don't kind of concentrate on what kind of the wish to be freed from the suffering. We don't concentrate on that, but we just only focus on the suffering, and then it doesn't work. It is not necessary. So we have to focus on how to free from suffering. The great compassion is a courage, determination. It's a very strong kind of armor. Yeah. It's very important to understand like this and then work in this way. Then the root text. First, Next, beginning with an attitude of love for all living creatures, consider beings excluding non-suffering in the three bad rebirths, suffering, birth, death, and so forth. Then you want to free these beings from the suffering of pain, from suffering, and the cause of suffering, arouse immutably and the resolve to attain enlightenment. So uh, all the beings are kind of suffering with three different kind of sufferings. Then Juridunga, the suffering of change, the suffering of suffering, suffering of change, and then the suffering, kind of natural suffering. The suffering of suffering is the suffering that we experience as pain, and the suffering of change is that what we feel as nice, as something pleasurable, as something good. This is called suffering of change because we have fear that all these things can change. So if we are carrying something very heavy on a right shoulder, then we have it's very painful. It is heavy. So then after some time, if we change this to the other side, then this we kind of this pain is kind of relieved. So therefore, what we feel as the happiness or what we feel as the comfort at the moment is not true kind of true freedom from suffering, true kind of happiness, but it is more like this in between. If you get relieved of some more painful thing, then you feel that is as very good. So that's just like that. So then the qualities of developing such as aspiration are fully attained by Maitreya in the Arya Trunk Sutra. Arouse immutable resolve to attain enlightenment, it says. Stanza number 11. The bodhicitta. Generally, if somebody has a very good heart, then you can say it has bodhicitta, but actually it's not just enough. So the bodhicitta means somebody who wishes these all sentient beings to be freed from all the sufferings and attain the lasting happiness. Is a great compassion. Why we have to say great compassion? Because its focus is all the sentient beings. The compassion for all the sentient beings. So may all these beings be free from every suffering or every pain. In order to do that, I would like to bring them kind of lasting happiness. There was a son and son and his father. They were walking. They in a very kind of empty place. They quite a fearful kind of a place. And then they lost the way. Then they had to go into different places because they separated. Then the father found the way, the right way. And then he's very happy because he had to go lots of places and lots of in the forest. So he lots of hardships. Then he found when he put his one feet in the, the right feet, he put in the right kind of path, and the next feet was not in that. Then he remembered his son. Then he again left his right path, and then he went back to find his son. In the same way, we kind of see the sufferings of this, the samsara. We are renunciated from this. We said, I must be free from this. We really see the necessity to free ourselves from this samsaric cycle. So that's the one feet. Then we remember all the sentient beings who is like our child, who are like lost in the limitless suffering of the samsara. Then we remember that, and we cannot give them up. So therefore, we go back to find them, to bring them back to this right path. So therefore, with compassion, our focus is all the sentient beings. With wisdom, our focus is on the enlightenment. So if these two are there, then you have bodhicitta. So you have to know that I need to become enlightened. If you have to be free from suffering, that you need to understand that. You need to focus there. But it's just that I have to become enlightened is a kind of wrong view, because so if you just want to be enlightened, just want the result, that's a kind of wrong view, because in order to do that, you have to get the cause of it. You have to find the right causes to become enlightened. That's kind of, in a way, wrong view. So therefore, if I have to become enlightened, I need to have all the sentient beings, because if I don't have a compassion, I can't become enlightened. So therefore, if there is no sentient beings, I can't become compassionate. So therefore, the compassion is happening because of all these sentient beings, and I get enlightened because I have compassion. So therefore, these sentient beings are the cause of my enlightenment. This is also another example. It's more or less same. There is a house on fire. The father just ran away. Then he kind of the doorstep, the kind of the doorstep, the one feet was outside the door, and the one feet was inside the door. And then he remembered his family members. And then he again went back. It's like that. I said once, it's very difficult to be only for the sake of others, only for the doing good things for others. What do you mean? There is no kind of feeling for yourself, only working for the benefit of others. That's very difficult. Everybody wants to do something for oneself, but you can do things for yourself, you can help yourself, but you cannot give up the purpose of others as well. There is always a connection with yourself. Maybe this is, when we say I. We think about I, something. The others are all out there. When I say I go, I eat, you know, then you, so you take yourself out from all others and then say I'm kind of independently from others. I feel as if I am independently of others. I'm totally separate from everything else. That's me. I, I'm a little bit afraid of this. When we made this umbrella, this is Tusum Chemba. Some people mistook me to be there. They said, why Kamapa is already here so early? This is not me. I am here. It's Thailand. Thailand. It's, this is made in Thailand. It looks like a human being. Looks like Kamapa. Maybe this will. Maybe this will. So everybody was little concerned about this. But is it really like that? That what I call me is not dependent on others or on other things. I'm totally separate identity or separate thing. It's quite easy. In Madhyamika, we use these different ways of analytical methods. We don't need those things right now. The food that we have to eat is coming from other people. We didn't bring any of the food with us. All the clothes that we are wearing is coming from outside, not from us. Even our breathing, our breath, is not not mine. So we have to breathe in the oxygen. It's coming from forest and plants. So that's coming from outside. It's not one time only, not only one day, not only 1 month. The whole, every day, every moment, the whole life we have to breathe in. Otherwise, we don't survive. So we are living, we are able to live. And we are able to breathe is based because of others, because of other things. So if we are, in a completely empty place, we can't become famous. We can't become. If somebody becomes successful or powerful or, famous, it's because other people. Just because we are living is also very much dependent on many other things. So therefore, I'm totally interdependent. If I have to become something good, if I have to get, all the right conditions, good conditions, then all these good conditions come from other things and other beings. So therefore, we have to do something good for others, other beings, because I want something good for me, and that condition comes from others. So therefore, if I have to have a nice family, then I have to be nice to all the family and all the family members. If we need a good, society, then I have to make all the people in the society, feel good and progress. And if we want the whole world to be a good place, then all the beings in the world has to have something good. So therefore, it's all interdependent. So if we think like that, we know that if I only think about myself, then if you really think carefully, then it has to be dependent on others. Even if even if I don't want to, I need to do good things for others because my goodness, my positive things is dependent on others. I, s- well, I saw this my photos of the youth, a young time, when I was a child, and then I saw that I was laughing a lot, and then when I grew up, I was not laughing, yes, whether I'm laughing or not. If I don't feel like laughing from the depth, then just laughing from outside feels like cheating. So I'm sorry, I don't have to pretend to laugh. But so I was thinking that people who are always thinking about the other persons or benefit of others, then maybe you become part of other people and you don't feel anything for yourself. I, during the Cultural Revolution, there was a lama in Golok. He was asked to destroy this stupa. If you don't destroy this stupa, you will be in prison. You will be sent to prison. And then this lama had a mother who was like 90 years old, and there was nobody to look after her except this lama. Then he thought that if I don't, if then what to do? Because if he didn't destroy this stupa, then he would not be able to serve his mother, and because he will be sent to the prison. So what to do? Then he said, "I am going to the prison." Then he told mother. Then the mother said, then the mother said, "From today, you just forget that you have a mother. You just go to the prison, and it's no problem. It's very good, and you stay in the prison in a very nice way." And there's another. And then there was another lama. He was asked to kill all the, these prairie dogs, and then he didn't kill them. Then his hand was kind of crushed with stones. Afterwards, that time I was not very painful. Because the Lama thought that, he said that he didn't have any pain. He didn't feel bad that his hand was totally crushed because he said that he thought that at that time, this time and this life, I have got some use for these hands because it didn't kill all these paradox, so it's been crushed and sometimes we feel that I'm here very kind of all well and very good and very powerful and things like that, very important, and the others who are kind of suffering and kind of low down there, and then I need to kind of help them from above. Uh, it's not like that. When you think, if you are really compassionate, a great compassion, you kind of become part of that, those people that you want to help them. You are not feeling anything separate from them. You become one with them. When you, but any kind of compassion is good. When we are when we are young, not just kind of cultivated, but generally, some people have the compassion. So some of us, we receive lots of teachings, we do lots of studies, and then we think that I have to become compassionate, and then we kind of, what can you say, we change, we kind of create a compassion. That's much less strong, it seems, than the natural compassion that comes uh, in our hearts generally, sometimes. In the autumn, then people, in our area, then the the they kill the animals, and but of course we ourselves, the family members, don't kill, but we bring somebody to kind of slaughter them. And there, they kind of kill by, uh, what you call it, binding uh, the the mouth so that they cannot breathe. At that time, the kind of compassion I used to feel is not same as now. It's much better that time. There's nothing to compare. I really felt, completely kind of unbearable compassion that time. But now we have all the thoughts and all the ways of how to do it, and kind of we know how to kind of practice, but not that spontaneity. It's like it's like egg. The natural compassion is like the chicken inside, which can jump, which is kind of moving. Uh, so therefore, all the positive deeds that we do, we kind of dedicate so that we get this kind of natural, spontaneous compassion. First, we understand what is it. Understand what we are, then we understand the world, and how the things are, and then we learn what the practice is all about. Uh, if you take the example of a monk, uh, first, in the olden times, then, we feel that we feel renunciated from this samsara, and then we go in and become a monk. That's how it. Uh, but nowadays it is not like that. Sometimes the monasteries become like a kind of a school. If a child, you just send it to the monastery and then you become a monk. There's not much of this kind of genuine renunciation. Maybe there are some, but so we are not kind of no no real motivation. They just, we're just sent to the monastery, and then, you know, uh, today in the Buddha Gaya, where all the thousand Buddhas of this world have become and will become enlightened. This is a very sacred place. Some of the people who would go on pilgrimage to Buddha Gaya from Tibet. So even a few steps they make, they dedicate. When I came out of Tibet, when I escaped, when I ran away, first I did the Mo and all these kind of things, whether I should be able to do it or not. And nobody had, I didn't have the confidence that I will be able to escape. Although there was no certainty. Some people are saying that I went to bring the hat or bring the some people say that I'm going to get the hat and things like that, but then the hat and your life, what is it doesn't fit in, the importance of your life and the hat, it doesn't kind of, you don't exchange your life for a hat. So, but then I needed to get the teachings, and then all my teachers are here. So if I could fly, then I would have flown, but I cannot fly, that's sure. So there was no other way but to run away by foot. Once when I become kind of quite old, like 18, 19 years, then maybe I will be given some kind of a political status. Then I might have to say bad things about His Holiness Dalai Lama and work against the cause of Tibet. Then it's very difficult. So then I came. Even I said it like that. Even if I can just I said it to others, and I thought it like that. Even if I can, make a few steps towards India, and then I have to die, it's okay. It doesn't matter. But I'm going. So, with lots of difficulties and hardships, I could come. So, it's very difficult to, very difficult to get. Then those people have come from Tibet and from China, also came with lots of difficulties. It's very difficult to get the passports and visas and all these things. They've also gone through lots of difficulties. So, and we all came for this very auspicious and very sacred place. We cannot, if we make, if you want to clean with one grass of kusha, we cannot clean much, but if we make a bunch, then we can make some clean. So, if we are all together, then we can make things better. And then all these all the monks and all the householders who are, you know, and also it is said that both the males and the females together with they pray, it's much more powerful than just one kind of males or females praying. So therefore all come together and we make a really strong prayer. It might be very powerful. And it is said that if all of us put together all the power and make a strong prayer, then I think that there is nothing which cannot be accomplished. Generally, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are always, intentionally coming in form of human beings to help, all the time. And then also the Karmapa started the Tulku system, and therefore the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas not giving up the beings, other beings, and then kind of again and again come back to the world to help beings. The Karmapa Tusum Chempa has been very great, is done so much help for the last 900 years. All these kind of the activities, his activities is, all these kind of the lineage that he has created, and because of that, the countless beings got liberated from, suffering, and also all these great beings or lineage holders and other beings, help all sort of other beings. So this is also because of the kindness of the Karmapa Tusum Chempa. So therefore, it is also said that if you make prayers and if you make, dedications and offerings to the lamas, then it will have a great benefit and great power. It's not easy to talk about Tusum Chempa. There are kind of the five, prosperities, auspiciousness, but maybe it doesn't need to talk about that. Maybe there are about 100 prosperities that we don't need to talk about. There are many things. Everything is there, so therefore the Buddha came to the world. The Dharma is still living. All the beings kind of the main the benefit of the teachings is that all the beings are led to more positive beings and bring the happiness to the beings. That's if the main benefit of the teachings is that it has to benefit the beings. Why we say that the Buddha Dharma has to live long? If it doesn't help the beings, then there is no need for the Buddha Dharma to be there or to remain. So therefore, because it has some benefit for the sentient beings, therefore the Buddha Dharma needs to be there. And also the reason why Buddha generated the bodhicitta, why Buddha practiced wisdom and compassion for so many eons, why he became enlightened, is all because he needed to, he wanted to, or it would help sentient beings, all the sentient beings. So therefore, for all the sentient beings, so let us all also think like that. let us take responsibility, each of us, that I would become enlightened. I would help other beings. Whether whatever happens, whatever I have to go through, difficult times and nice times, and whatever may happen, I will bring all these beings to the enlightenment, to lasting happiness. So therefore, I need this kind of a courage. I need this kind of a, you know, aspiration. Even if I talk about the views and things like that, some people might, a few people might understand, but not. If you just say that everybody has to feel, it's very important to have some people with good intentions in this world. It's very important. Everybody is kind of with lots of deceptions. Many people, it's kind of you cannot trustworthy. You know, if everybody becomes untrustworthy and without good thoughts, then it's very sad. Whether I get victory, then I'll go this way. Whether I get defeat, I'll go this way. You know, if whatever happens to me, whether I have a good life or difficulties or success, I will go by this way. If I make this decision right from the beginning, then there is nothing you can change. It's like if you are happy, then I'll share this with all the sentient beings. If there is unhappiness, may this unhappiness, I can carry on all the unhappiness of all the beings on myself alone. So that kind of a dedication, that kind of a aspiration needs to be there. So we are, living by the, light of the one sun. So we live by the oxygen of same oxygen. We are all living by the same breathing, same oxygen. We are breathing. We are living by the light of the same sun. So we are all same. So we have different religions with different faiths and different things, but it's same. We are all same human being. We experience same way the suffering and the happiness, and same wish for to be happy and same wish to be free from unhappiness. If, because the world is becoming smaller and smaller, so if there is one trouble in one spot of the world, then it's bringing lots of trouble to all parts of the world as well these days. Because the environment is deteriorating, so therefore we have to live with some kind of anxiety when a great kind of catastrophe might happen. So we always hear about all different kind of environmental catastrophes. There are also predictions that in 2012 there will be lots of negative things happening in 2012. First I heard these things, I said, no, this can't be, I don't believe anything, but then so many people are talking about it. Then I don't know what is happening, but there's something. There's so many, from so many sources, there is something happening. So when you look at this kind of the magnetic field in this in the north, that magnetic field that's in the north is going to change, they say. And there has been lots of earthquakes before 2012. So many people died in Chekundo. In many countries, many parts of the world, there are so many kind of earthquakes and great destructions happened, as you know. At least if one, if you become a better person, at least in this world, you know, there is one bad person less. So therefore, it's very important. So now let us take this aspiration, Bodhisattva vow. There are two things. In order to bring all the sentient beings to the enlightenment, may I become enlightened. That's one. That kind of aspiration. That aspiration you have to make. At least that much you do. And then if you have a little bit more higher understanding, all the sentient beings have so much pain and problems. It's not the time for me to just waste my time, just to relax and enjoy myself. I must do something. I must get my courage. I must make decision. Accelerate. I must accelerate myself. Accelerator. Accelerator. I even forgot the Tibetan for that, Tibetan word for that. Put our, the highest kind of, what, acceleration?
Put your foot to the metal.
Yeah, put your foot on the, what?
Put your foot to the metal.
Put your foot on the metal. So whatever may be, I will never give up this bodhicitta. So I have to kind of really, you know, all those who wants to take bodhisattva vows, those who can kneel, then kneel, and if you cannot kneel, then feel that, or make the intention of kneeling. So if you feel that I cannot observe by all these precepts and activities, then say, may I be able to bring all the beings to this, lasting happiness. That much you feel. And then I will really bring all the beings to the ultimate happiness. So therefore, I will do something. From today till I get enlightened, I will never give up this. So think like that. Maybe we need a refuge kind of a tree because Buddha got enlightened under Bodhi tree. So we feel in front of us is the Buddha. Maybe it's whether it's in the sky or on the ground, it doesn't matter. Then all the kind of we think about the Lama to whom you have the most kind of trust, and then you feel that all the sentient beings are here with you, and whatever kind of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas that you know or you have connection with, you feel that they are all in present, in our present. You believe or you feel that they are there. So please repeat after me that this is the first one. Sangye, Buddha, Dharma, Soji, Chonam, the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha, Sapso, Chu. I go refuge till I get enlightened. Whatever positive deeds I made, like giving, may I become enlightened in order to benefit sentient beings. So you say this 3 times. And you make again the second time and third time with more energy and more acceleration. And the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, generated bodhicitta, and all these sentient beings who have suffering all the time. I would like to look at them and help them. So when we are in a positive deed, in positive kind of aspiration, so all of them, kind of because of their power, because of their blessings, so all our aspirations become accomplished quickly. So therefore, may I be able to really accomplish what I wish. Sanje, Chödang, Soji, Chonam, La, Sangju, Bardo, Dane, Japsu, Chi, Dagi, Jinso, Jibe, Sonam, Ji, Dola, Pensil, Sanje, Dubar, Sho. Now this is the third time. Then when I say Sho, then you feel that you have actually received the aspiration bodhicitta. That your kind of decision, your that I want to generate bodhicitta, I want to enlighten, bring all the sentient beings to lasting happiness. That decision has been, has been made. That has kind of, I made this kind of promise. That my promise has been done. You feel like that. All these sufferings of the beings, I must bring them to a permanent happiness and lasting peace. That I must do. So to make a promise of this kind. Hanji, Chödang, Choji, Chonam, La, Sanjo, Pardo, Dane, Japsu, Che, Dagi, Jesu, Ijebe, Sonam, Chi, Dola, Pencil, Sanje, Dubar, Sho. Sit down, please. Now, Dombokupa, Array of Trunks Sutra, it is said that if you have bodhicitta, then even if you cannot do much, all other positive deeds are kind of it is said that if you have the ornament of diamonds, then all other kind of stones and all our ornaments are kind of become small or less glorious. So in the same way, if we have the bodhicitta and even we make a kind of aspiration or a prayer, then all the other positive deeds will become kind of much less glorious. When we talk about Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, Pratyeka Buddhas and Shravakas are not small. It's very big. It's very important. It's very very strong. But compared to the bodhicitta, then that will be kind of nothing to compare. The sutra requested by Viradatta, it is said, maybe you do it.
Here we're talking about the benefits of bodhicitta explained in the sutra requested by Viradatta, where it says if it had a physical form, if it's like some physical thing that were this form of this bodhicitta, that not just filled the entire space, not only filling entire space, but was even bigger than space. It's bigger than all of the space. Like space has no limits, and because space has no limits, and so it's even bigger, even more limitless than the endlessness. If it were something that were even bigger than limitless space. And when we think about this, it's like, as I said, when we talk about, as we mentioned yesterday, when we talk about our mind, our intentions being larger than space, our mind, our bodies are small, but we can make aspirations, we can send our aspirations out to the infinite amount of space, to everywhere that space is filled by space. And so when we think about, if we're thinking that the aspiration of do this actually fills the entire whole of space, so the merit of what we do, it fills the entire space. So on verse 18, it says, having developed the aspiration for enlightenment, constantly enhance it through concerted effort, to remember it in this and other lives, so that other precepts properly. So here it says that keep the precepts properly. It means that we have to keep the precepts. It's not just a question of having the aspirations. We also have to keep the precepts of this. Now, there are many different explanations of this by different scholars. But as it continues, it says, without the vow of engaged intention, perfect aspiration will make it grow. Make effort definitely to take it, since you wish to go for enlightenment to grow. So what we have done now is we have taken the vow of aspirational bodhicitta. So we're taking that as the basis. So we're explaining about taking the vow of aspirational bodhicitta. And once we've taken that vow of aspirational bodhicitta, we need to keep the precepts of it. And so the precepts of these, we have to give up the four negative actions and take up the 4. And if we can't do that, then we give up the four negative actions, and we don't give up on sentient beings. And so, what are the four negative karmas? If we could make it, the first is to make it easy to understand. It's to fool the Lama, the Sangha, and other people. So basically, it's to fool them through making to fool the Lama and the Khenpo and so forth through making laws. The Karmapa and Mikhi Jidorje spoke about this. So the source of the qualities is our Lama. The source of our kindness is our parents, and so there's nothing worse than fooling people such as these. And so this is something we need to think about, especially when we think about our sponsors. Because our sponsors give all of us in the Sangha all of their things that have gone through many efforts and difficulties in order to give much effort. And so they are people who are giving, and we need to be someone who is an appropriate person, an unmistaken recipient of them, and it's important that we do not fool them in any way. If we fool them, there's the danger that we will lose our bodhicitta. And once, if we lose our bodhicitta of aspiration, then at that moment we also give up we'll also give up our bodhicitta of action, and at the same time we'll also give up all of our samaya, all our commitments of the mantrayana as well. So we'll lose all of the vows of the Vajrayana, will be expelled from the Vajrayana, and so that is not good at all. And so this is something we need to keep in mind. The second thing is not to cause those who should not regret something to regret it. So when someone does something positive, say, oh, you shouldn't do things like that. So maybe someone has done some vastly wonderful thing, but then because you have jealousy, like for example, if Lama Tashi, for example, has done something really wonderful, gathered lots of merit, but then Lama Rinchen Dao, but what name should I think about? If I say the name wrong, then you're going to think it's you. So Lama Invisible Vajra is best. So Lama Invisible Vajra gets jealous about that. And he says, oh, you having given that to all these people is bad. That was a terrible thing to do. And if you do something like that, it is not good. Because if you make him feel a regret over something he should not regret, that also eliminates your bodhisattva vow. If you regret a misdeed, that is good, of course. But if you make someone regret something they shouldn't regret, then that's not good at all. And so it's like this is something. If there's something that happens, to people say, "Oh, that wasn't good," or "That wasn't bad," then people get wonder about that, and so then there's the danger. If there's so be careful about what you say to others. If you start wondering about the good things, or was this good or bad, because then people might also get regret about things. So be careful to keep your mouth closed on others. So the next is to criticize bodhisattvas, and so we never know who's going to be a bodhisattva. We don't know where the bodhisattvas are. We don't know who they are. So when we criticize someone, then we could be criticizing a bodhisattva. So for example, at the very least, we shouldn't even criticize a bug, because who knows, that bug might also be a bodhisattva, and we should not do this intentionally. And so we should even intentionally not. And so at this point, we should not say anything do anything disrespectful to any bodhisattva. And so because we don't know who a bodhisattva is, we should always do it anything else. So, so we are clouded by great thick ignorance. Even if you pretend that that you have great intelligence, you're really enshrouded in ignorance, and you don't know what others people's minds are. You don't know what they're thinking. We get a lot of information in many places, but we really don't know things from the way they actually are. But we are boastful. We think that we know things, and we think we know things about other people when actually we don't, and that's not good. And particularly in our Sangha and with our Dharma friends, our friends abroad, or friends in Dharma centers, Dharma friends, there are many problems that it has. Oh, he did this, that, did that, and there's this and that, and 1, 2, and the other 3s, and so all of you in Dharma centers and everywhere, there's the danger of losing your bodhicitta with each other. The fourth point is, and so the causing harm to another is becoming the cause of harm is not good. Is also another way of losing your bodhicitta. So it's like, for example, in these days, in the political arena these days, there are people who use war as an instrument of possibility. There was, for example, in China, there was someone who was who was very skilled in the art of warfare, and he was talking about a way to gain power and gain without using military force. And so he said, he's saying that there's no. So when you have a situation where if you get jealous of someone else, you kill them, then kill someone else, then their relatives kill your relatives, and they go back and forth, and there's no end to it all. And so we need to go in the peaceful way. So using a peaceful, non-violent way is a feature of Buddhism, no matter what action it comes down to. It's most important that we not do anything that causes the teachings to decline. And so the 4 positive qualities, it's probably okay if we leave them up. The most important thing is that we give up these 4 negative dharmas. These are not, these are called black dharmas. And this is not a question of being black, it's a question of being negative, harmful. So basically, there's no fooling those who are those who are great. There's no regretting things, making people regret things that they should not regret. For example, if someone is in a Theravada saying, "Oh, being Theravada is bad," that's not. You shouldn't do that. The third is not criticizing the bodhisattvas and so forth. It's because we don't know who it is who's a bodhisattva. We should not. So therefore, we should not criticize anyone. And the fourth is that we should not have any fooling or in our mind. We have to have a pure positive attitude. And so the last thing is that we should never give up on sentient beings. So not giving up on sentient beings means my time is up. So not giving up on sentient beings is, as I said yesterday, it doesn't mean not giving up on all sentient beings. It means even if you give up only one sentient being, you've given up on sentient beings. And so what does that mean? If you think, oh, there's this one sentient being, you think about there's an opportunity to help that being. And saying helping a being doesn't necessarily mean bringing to them a state of benefit, whether it's a temporary benefit or an ultimate benefit. It's a question of not doing that thing that could benefit them. or if there's a question of the being is not, there's a place where they're in danger, if they're intentionally thinking, oh, I'm going to let them get in that dangerous situation. If you have that sort of thought, then you are giving up on sentient beings. And so this is, in animal, even as small as an ant. So sentient beings doesn't mean just sentient sentient beings includes all sorts of animals, ants, pigs, donkeys, everything. And so we should not intentionally give up on other sentient beings. If you have no power, there's nothing you can do about it. But it's if you intentionally, particularly let whatever bad thing happens, you need to do whatever you can to help. You shouldn't do whatever you can to harm. Especially, we don't need to talk about directly giving up on other sentient beings. Indirectly, also, we should not give up on sentient beings. There are the ways that we do things now. Like we've got these currently made way to do things. Like we do a lot of. We have a lot of. So we have. One way of thinking about it is if we do a lot of things, negative things now, then in the future we will fall down into the lower realms. So then we won't be able to help other sentient beings. So in that way we will have given up of all sentient beings. We will not be able to bring them benefit. And so that way we will have given up on them. So for that reason we need to always have good things. And so doing things in order to gain a good rebirth in the next life is a way of helping sentient beings. So if we train well in this precept of not giving up on sentient beings, so then in our future life we will not forget the bodhicitta, even if we take being as a human or as a tiger or as a cow. We will not forget it. So no need to mention being a human. So this is something that I thought about before. This is. So this is something I've thought about before. I've talked about vegetarianism before, but this isn't just thinking about that. It's thinking about developing a kind heart. And so, like we're thinking about, if you're killing pigs. And so, like when they slaughter pigs, they bring a small gun that has a very short gun, and they kill them in their head. And so when you think about it, in this life I don't need to worry about it. In the future life, what if this happens? So I made an aspiration for this. I wrote this aspiration. And so what's the name of this aspiration? All the sentient beings who are as limitless as space. So may I never be separated from all the sentient beings who experience all the sufferings and all the lives. And so this sense of, in this lifetime I'm okay, but in this, I'm in for it in a future life. It's that sort of thought. It is important for us to make aspirations that we can take a good rebirth where at the very least, even if we can't help sentient beings, we will not harm them. Jamgon Lodro Taya said so that even if we cannot do great things to help other sentient beings, if we cannot, if we give a so there's an aspiration by Lodro Taya that out of his great love that he may take a birth in a future where he does not have to eat meat. And so this is, even if he has so this is a shine of, and so this is making an aspiration, not that he just doesn't have to eat meat, but that he can take a life where he has to harm other sentient beings. And so now please think, I'm thinking myself as a representative of all sentient beings. I'd like to thank you all for taking the Bodhisattva vow today.